Tristan Kumar's Dying Planet. Narrated by Tristan Kumar. Part 9. Suspended Fate. No, you're supposed to be dead, I stuttered and stumbled in shock. Well, I'm alive, aren't I? He said, smiling. He grabbed me by the throat, lifted me up, and threw me back with immense power. I flinched in pain and slowly stumbled to get up. I'm sorry I have to do this, but let's just say that it's necessary for change, eh? He cracked his neck and walked toward me. I jumped up and dodged his first punch. Then I punched him in the guts. I felt good about it, but suddenly he threw a combo that left me on my knees and the wind blown out of me. There was just no way that I could survive this with just my fists. He jumped, did somehow a flip, and then was coming down to slam his heel on my forehead. I rolled out of the way, went to a table on the left side, grabbed a metal pole. I grabbed it in time because he jumped at me, and I let him fly over the table. He vaulted over the table angrily, and I stepped away. I swung, and when his vision was blurry, I slid under and shattered his knees. That seemed to do nothing because he just stood up. I looked at him in shock. Ow, he joked. He cracked his knuckles and slugged me in the chin as he chuckled. I screamed in pain and as he kicked me when I was on the ground. I slid back. On my knees, he started to run. He ran right by me, and his knee struck me squarely in the face. I fell back and slammed my head against the ground. I was covered in blood and sweat now, and felt that I was about to pass out. I stood up and spat out blood into his face. I smiled as he ran toward me, going insane. I jumped and dived into a roll and jumped off the wall, and when he turned in confusion, I knocked him out cold by bouncing off the wall into a powerful punch to the face. I shook my fist, pretending like it was easy, but immediately fell to the ground. I couldn't remember anything. There weren't even any dreams this time, I think. Hey, I told you that I couldn't remember anything. During it, I think I saw flashes of the real world. They found me and took me and Oscar to the main area. Next, they were bandaging me and healing me. After around what I thought was 2 hours, I finally woke up and rubbed my eyes. No, rest. You can't, Sylvie said as she sat me back down. There's someone on the ship. We need to... I tried to say. It's okay. Just rest, please. She begged. I agreed and sat back down and got more rest. One of the final moments that I would get good sleep. When I woke up, Sylvie was gone. But when I turned to my side, so was Oscar. My eyes shot open, and I stood up quickly and ran around trying to gather the other kids to protect them. It felt so empty. I felt like I had failed and that I had just lost everyone. I ran around, but finally I found someone. It was Shock. He was huddled in a corner, seeming to be crying. I ran to him quickly. Hey, what's happening? I asked. He looked at me and winced. I looked at his chest. Just like Oscar, there was blood on him. He had been attacked. I helped him up to the bed and sat him down. No, come on. Get up, you can't die. Wake up, we're so close, I said. He put his hand on my shoulder and whispered, I'm so sorry. He took one more dry breath in and let it out. His bloodshot eyes stayed looking at me. I stood up and trembled, knowing that there was nothing I could do. Even though he was the one who got me in the hospital a world ago and was the leader of a stupid group that bullied me, it felt so much to me. He had so much anger, breaking the speaker, arguing with others, but now here he was, not like that. He was gone. Surprisingly, I had tears in my eyes for this kid, but I held them back as I looked up. I went to the desk and on it was a gun. I checked to see if it was loaded, went outside of the room and closed the door. Once it closed, I inhaled deeply in the cold air and put the gun up. It must be Oscar. I have to kill him. I have to. I clenched my fist around the gun. I walked around, checking every room for hopefully no more bodies. I eventually ended up back in the room with the vent. I crawled through it and ended up at the cells once more. This time, I saw something move from far into the darkness. I put the gun up quickly. I shoveled forward and saw Oscar on the ground. I pointed my gun at him. Once he moved, I would shoot. He turned at me, and I immediately shot him straight straight in the forehead. His blood and brain started to leak out. The gun rang out all over the ship. I flinched at the sound, but I watched as Oscar slowly rested his head. He fell to his hands, and blood came out of the wound. Suddenly, I heard something behind me. I leaped out of the way before the red blob came slithering back. It was heading straight for Oscar, longing to connect like the dream. I shot at it, but it did nothing. It just absorbed the bullets. Oscar reached for it, and I screamed. I watched as the blob crawled over Oscar into its body gorily. It grew to a towering figure. The monster. Behind it, Sky, Knight, and Electos yelled something. They had all guns too. Convenient. They shot at it, but the creature was immune to the bullets. "No! Run! Get away!" I yelled, but the thing slapped me back to the wall. Through the dust in the air, I could see the muzzled flashes of their guns lighting up the room and illuminating the figure. Slowly, one by one was taken out. I screamed and yelled and tried to stand. Even though I fell, I caught myself and ran to help them. Once I arrived, I emptied my entire gun into the monster as it finished Sky. My jaw dropped as it threw the body of the floor next to Electos, both of them decapitated. It pounced tonight. Then Sylvie ran behind and ejected a needle into it. It roared and ran off. "What is that?" I started, but Sylvie kept running. As I started to follow, I looked back at Knight as he looked over his sister's body. All of his friends were dead. He started to cry, but the monster started to come back. I pulled him, and he rejected me. He grabbed a wrench from the table and screamed as he ran toward it. My scream of despair echoed throughout the hallways, even after the next few seconds had passed. As the monster reached to grab him, he ducked and sliced its leg. It fell back to the ground, and he climbed on its back and stabbed the wrench through his eyes. He stumbled around the hallway, blinded. It reached up on top of him and grabbed Knight. It shoved him against the wall and he went limp. He wasn't done, though. He held his body up and strangled the monster. I started to run towards it, but Sylvie yanked me back. "No, he's dead. Everyone is," she screamed in tears. I winced as I heard a crack and a loud thump. I ran off with Sylvie into the main ship as I heard the monster regenerating itself. We went into the room with the Latin words on the paper and hid in absolute silence. We could hear it outside the room, storming around eerily, trying to find us. I looked around the room, drying my tears. I looked down at my legs and found that my leg was cut and bleeding. I grabbed a part of my dusty jacket, ripped it off, and tied it around the wound. I still remember the times when I wore this to school every day. So long ago now, and now everyone else was gone except for me and Sylvie. We sat in silence. I stood up quietly and walked around the room. Sylvie looked at me, mouthing, "What are you doing?" I said, "Looking around for something to kill it." She nodded, and we started to look. We looked all over the room. There was this cube pattern on the wall, and there were 9 tiles that were a different tint than the others. I went back to the desk and found the sticky notes of the Earth exploding from earlier. I took the fully formed Earth picture sticky note and put it on the wall above it. It fit, so I put it on there. We heard a rustling and thought it was the monster, but the wall seemed to go in. I picked up the others and put them along the wall as well. Once all the squares were in, 2 squares on another wall fell off and headed to the ground quickly. Very luckily, Sylvie caught them before they made a sound. Inside, the compartment was unbelievable. So, if you could remember, for a second, forever ago when I was in the school attack, the Red Sun explosion as they call it, when the person was planting the bomb, it had a red energy core that was glowing and pulsing. So, inside the compartment, that was there. I stepped back in shock and fear. Sylvie mouthed, "What? What is it?" "It's a core that was used to power a bomb in a school. My school. The one that caused the sun to explode," I mouthed. She stepped back from it too. "Do you think," she started. "What?" I asked. "Well, do you think that we could forge this into some weapon to try and kill it?" she asked me. But the moment she said kill it, I mouthed yes. It had to. There was no other choice. She started to tinker with objects, as did I. I handed her a knife from the underside of the pillow. She was confused like I was. We broke the core, and a liquid poured out of it. It was described just like the doctor described my blood in the hospital. We saw that your blood was glowing. We spread it across the blade, and it hardened. Now that we had our potential killing weapon, we had to make a plan. Our first thought was that we should charge it all at once, but then it would take us both out at the same time. So we decided that I would go and lead it to the cafeteria area, the big window area, then Zoe would jump down with a knife and kill it. We nodded. She gave me a regular knife just for defense, and I went into the vent. She nodded at me, and I nodded back. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank me when you come back," she assured. I nodded and headed in. Once again, I went into the hallway of testing. At the end of the hall, Oscar walked out of the darkness and smiled. "Rye, have you come to kill me? My new friends and I have been looking for you and your friend, and we're quite hungry," he said as he formed a red, sharp spike, forming a knife. "Your new friend? What about me, your first friend?" I said. He laughed. "You think that you were my friends? You were pathetic. My new friend makes me," his voice shifted downward, "stronger. There's nothing now that can make you stronger. I am going to finish what we started." I clenched my fist around the blade. "Right now." This episode was recorded by Tristan Kumar. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to check out the final episode in Tristan Kumar's Dying Planet. This is the first book of the trilogy, and then more beyond that. But we'll move on to the next final part and the epilogue. And if you want to see that, then check out the next video. Thank you for listening.